Socialists often say that when the revolution happens and they get into power, they will dismantle capitalism. They will implement policies that are contrary to capitalism, and then those policies will actually help the workers. And the people in power, the socialists, will be acting in the interest of the workers. But is this what actually happens historically? Let's take a look at one example, the Bolshevik Revolution. Shortly after the Bolsheviks came to power through a revolution and a coup in Russia, the workers and the peasants started to rebel against them. One of the ways they did this was through massive strikes. Historian Rainer Ziedelman writes, in the spring of 1920, nearly 3/4 of all industrial workers in Russia went on strike. The Bolsheviks stormed the factories and the ringleaders were shot. So as soon as the workers did something that the Bolsheviks didn't like, they started killing them. There were more strikes in February and March of 1920, and the Cheka, Lenin's secret police, began firing on demonstrating workers. Through all of this, thousands of workers were killed. Many of the leaders, the ringleaders, the union leaders, they were put into prison. These socialist Bolsheviks did not have the interest of the workers in mind. As soon as the workers' interests contradicted their ideology, they killed them. Now, if we're talking policy, they did implement a ton of socialist policies. They had something called war communism. The socialist economist Alec Nove notes that this was an attempt at total and moneyless planning. In September of 1919, about 80 to 90% of large-scale industry had been nationalized. So they banned private manufacturing, nationalized almost all industry, and materials were allocated by the state. They banned private trade, they seized peasant surpluses, they had a partial elimination of money, and with all of that combined, what were the outcomes? Ziedelman points out industrial production had fallen to 1/10 of its 1913 level, and people all across Russia were starving. Ziedelman notes industrial production had already fallen to 1/10 of its 1913 level, and people all across Russia were starving. Millions of people starved to death during the famine in the early 20s, which was caused mainly by these policies. And actually, it was the United States of America and American capitalists that helped Russians survive. There was the Russian Famine Relief Act. The US government gave almost $2 billion to Russia, and private people gave almost $2 billion to Russia as well, and that included capitalists. So really, the capitalists were more concerned about helping the Russian people than the Bolsheviks were. War communism was such a massive failure that even the Bolshevik leaders realized this, and they implemented something else called the New Economic Policy, or the NEP. The NEP legalized profit-oriented production, private ownership in the production of consumer goods, and the acquisition of wealth. They also allowed state-owned enterprises to be lent over to private individuals. As a result of what was basically the Bolsheviks embracing capitalism, hunger declined and productivity was restored to its pre-war levels. So the socialist Bolsheviks did not really care about the workers. They killed workers who rebelled against them, and they implemented socialist policies which made the workers' lives worse, and the only time they actually helped the workers was by rejecting socialism. And really, this same story plays out over and over and over again. So there's really no reason to expect that it's going to be different next time.